Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 39 of FPL the Onion. Great Foden's Raving is a ridiculous pun. Comments below on YouTube if you got that one. It's probably showing mine and Shlee's age. So this show is about Fantasy Premier League, and listening to it will make you better at FPL, guaranteed. If you think rolling a transfer is preferable to a tattoo, then this is the place for you. Apologies, that is a terrible joke. Game week 9 was a high scoring week for most. We finally saw that 8 million mids come good in Foden, Bowen, and Madison. And the captaincy choice was pretty brutal for those who went against the human meat shield that is Erling Haaland. Any questions, as usual, please put them in the comments below, and we will come back to you with our thoughts. We like to write huge missives on in answering your questions. Mr. Shlee's as guilty as everybody with that. But how are things, Mr. Shlee? How was your week?
Good, thanks, Nick. Yeah, it was. I was just checking. Actually, it was my second best week in terms of game week rank. I think it was your third, but it was pretty fun to be a part of, wasn't it? It was one of those where I thought it was better than it was. You think, oh my goodness, yeah, okay, I know my captain has won 70% EO, but if he gets 23 points, that's surely going to be pretty powerful. When a lot of other poor people have done Salah,
Yeah,
heart goes out to them. But you know. And then when Madison banged, that was obviously really good. But until that point, it was kind of, it was good, but it wasn't amazing. And still, it wasn't amazing for us. But yeah, as we were saying before, some people in our league got some serious points out of this week. So yeah, pretty fun for a lot of people, I think.
yeah, it was fun. Although I think for me, little things like just kind of going back to Leon Bailey on wildcard and just even with his fixtures, they've he and Villa are still just disappointed, and it's just little things like that. Obviously, the big at the back still not really working at all. James Cancelo. Obviously, some people went back to Trent. I almost went back to Trent. Still just not really working out for people. But yeah, I think Foden's everyone's mentioned it, but he's just breaking the game at the moment, isn't he? Sorry, Haaland's just breaking the game at the moment with his scores. And I think there's a lot of people now who've been burnt by going for Salah who, it'll be even higher EO moving forward, because I think even those brave souls they're not going to repeat that again anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah, and it looks easy in hindsight. I didn't really think about the times I've been burnt not captaining Haaland yet, but for sure I haven't captained of any of his home hat tricks until now.
Oh, really? Did you not? I got him for the second one. I didn't get the Palace one because Salah had Bournemouth that week in the 9-0. So I didn't get that one against Palace. And I also, probably my biggest regret, I think, of the season so far is just not starting with Haaland and having him for game week 1. I don't think I would have captained him against Salah. And I think Salah did. Did Salah do marginally better against Fulham? Did he get a goal and an assist?
In game week 1.
Yeah, I think
I'm trying to think, was that 2-2?
I think it was 2-2, and I think Salah may have got a goal and assist, possibly. I can't remember, but yeah, I mean, after the Palace hat trick, I can't remember who the second hat trick was against. His second hat trick in a row.
I know he did. You're right. Goal and assist in the first game, Salah. Which got 2. So yeah, but it was one of those where after it happened, I was like, bloody, I'm glad I didn't do that again and ignore that. Okay, it was United, and yeah, tricky on paper, kind of, but and I'm sure no one expected 6, well, especially the 3. United did actually quite well in attack, but yeah, that was pretty brutal.
Just so funny how similar it was to the kind of Salah versus Havertz game week 9 last season. Just so exactly the same. Same opposition in United, and obviously I think this United weren't as much of a basket case as the United last season in game week 9, but I think City have just gone up a level, haven't they? And they're much better than that Liverpool side was last season. So I watched that game and they absolutely destroyed them in the first half. So
yeah, it was Forest and Haaland got the other
right
hat trick. And yeah, looking back, it'd be one of those sort of season review things, and if we listen back to this, it would be useful. But my thoughts there were, when Salah for game week 4, he was involved in a 9-0 and classically got no returns.
Yeah,
and then for sure game week 5 was a mistake, and I got lucky out of that, really, that Salah got his jammy assists in that, 2 assists and 2 bonus, but one of them was right at the death with a shoulder on the line or whatever.
Wasn't the thinking though, and maybe this was in your mind, was the thinking that he might be rested for Forest?
Yeah, exactly. That was in there as well. Yeah, he only got 68 minutes. It was the will he start,
Yeah.
won't he? And okay, he started, but got taken off pretty early. But by then did the damage. So as you say, he's a complete machine, and it in a way is frustrating because anyone that hasn't done it now is just going to think, great, I've not gotten those points. Everyone's going to be now going for him. He's going to be 180. Most weeks probably plus, even in that Liverpool game potentially next week. And captaincy, I think for a bit is gone. But this happened last season, didn't it, with Salah? And everyone thought he's permanent captain for the season, never going to sell. And then look what happened by what was it, halfway through? We were all not captaining him and benefiting, or still captaining, thinking why are we still doing this? So
Have
it can change.
you seen what's happened tonight against Copenhagen?
I saw it was 3-0 and Haaland got 2.
He's got 2, but he got taken off at half time.
Oh wow!
So I'm
Presumably
guessing
not with
he's either injured or he's just like, well, he's done what he needs to do in this game, so I want to get him ready for the next one.
I think I don't have loads of notifications on, but I think if he was injured, I probably would have seen something on Twitter. So hopefully he's all right. Well, I don't know. Do you do you partly wish that he might have a problem?
No, not at all. I mean, I in a way, because the captaincy swings can be so brutal in this game, and I don't know, I quite like it when that is one decision that's kind of taken away. Like I did quite well last season when Salah was my perma captain, because you always get the odd person who will, or the odd, thousands of people who will go against it. And I just think that yes, it will sometimes pay off, but really, again, you're playing the odds, aren't you, of this. Like Salah, when he was doing what he did to City last season and United last season, looked like the best player in the world in terms of form. And Haaland looks like that now, comfortably, head and shoulders, to excuse the pun, above everybody else. So I'll just, as long as he isn't injured and as long as he's not got a blank game week, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be captaining him, because again, I do regret not just having, obviously it looks hindsighty now, but I wish I'd captained him in every single game week, because I'd have a lot more points than I do now.
Yeah. But you did it in game week 2, and okay, that flip-flopped the wrong way, didn't it? But you reacted pretty quick there. I feel pretty sorry for people like Andy, who I don't know if you watched his New Jet stream, but he fronted up and was being very honest, and also taking the time to appreciate what other people must be going through with it. Not having any of those hat tricks is pretty demoralizing, and but he's just like, just dust yourself off and pick yourself up. These things happened, and like you say, the parallels to last season when it was Salah doing his thing in another game week 9 fixture and everyone not getting the Havertz points, it was pretty crazy.
Has Andy not had any of his hat tricks then?
He hasn't captained him in any of those, I don't think. No.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he captained him in that Bournemouth game when, what was it, 5-0, and he only got the assist, and maybe one other, but I don't think he's captained any of the hat tricks. And for you and I, that was the first one we did, right? Oh no, sorry, you said you did one of them. You said you must have done Forest. Yeah, you did. Because I remember thinking, oh dear, when I saw that everyone had done that when I'd gone with Salah. And as I say, I think quite lucky getting 10 out of him in that week.
Yeah, I've just seen, in trying to look on Twitter to see if Haaland's injured, Ben Dinnery's tweeted and said, I've had Haaland, sorry, since week 1, but it's time to go. Waving emoji. Ownership is far too high. 82.7% is ridiculous and boring. So I'm looking elsewhere at a few different options.
I think he might be joking.
I don't know.
When did he tweet that? Was it about 4 hours ago? I think I saw that.
No, it was this morning.
Right.
And then he said, and done. And he's brought Wilson in, apparently.
I don't know. Is that a just a maverick? I don't really care.
Do you reckon he's joking?
He's the injury guru, right? Ben Dinnery,
yeah,
like the insider on
yeah.
injury, right? Because if it was half hour ago, maybe he knows something about half time removal, but surely he's just joking.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it'll be interesting to see whether that is just a joke, but because I think he's had quite a good start to the season. I think.
Is he? Okay.
I thought he had, but yeah, if that is true, that's very. He's definitely trying to make it more interesting for himself, isn't he? So
yeah, maybe he's copying Raptor, having a good season. Have you seen that?
Raptor's absolutely flying, isn't he?
Was it? I think it's 2.5K or something.
No, I think he's in the top 1,000, isn't he?
Oh wow. Okay. For those
I saw a message from him saying he was like 60th or something, because he had Maddison on Monday night as well. So I think when he was 2.5K was before the Leicester game.
Wow. Okay. Right. Okay. That's maybe where I got it from. But yeah, a very big content creator for those who don't know, doing absolutely brilliantly, which is pretty cool.
Indeed.
Speaking of which, there are some people doing very well in the league as well. Yeah, I mean, this week was such a polar week, like you say. People with Trent and or Salah probably didn't do great, but if you had, I mean, we had one of Foden, Trossard, Haaland, and Bowen, and yeah, luckily captain one of them. Probably most people did on the Haaland one, but you know, if you had 2 or 3, even the others, I don't think I've seen anyone with all 4 that in our league anyway. But you know, 2 or 3 of those, and that's where the 119s in the league here come from. So
Yeah.
a new leader, Dean Ambrose, congrats to you. 3 points ahead of Raj Conway, who's dropped down to second. Still a good week for him, 103.
So whereabouts is Dean in the world?
So I'll just move over to the Tinker screen there, and we can properly have a look. This might take a moment. Hello. 7,000 game week rank. Nice.
Wow.
2.9k in the world.
Wow. Nice. Very nice. Yeah, the other person to give a shout out to is Mark from Andy's Discord channel. Can you bring him up on here? See what his combination was.
Very nice. I mean, I've seen 119 quite a bit. I wonder if there is a very game week 8 semi-template in there.
Yeah.
Just get it similar on the screen.
Yeah. Bowen, Maddison, Foden, Haaland captain. That is absolutely insane, isn't it? Look at that.
Got his bench in the perfect order as well. So I don't know if you can see that, but he's got 2 people with minus points on the bench, so he's definitely ordered that pretty nicely.
Look at that! If he'd had the balls to play Ward, could have been absolutely flying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pope's so unlucky, blimmin' conceding, what was it, 80th minute in a
because they took off three defenders, didn't they, in the last 10 minutes? Obviously, one of them being Trippier, but yeah, they just took their whole defense out. I think that's one of the reasons why it seems like we've seen fewer clean sheets. I think because managers are kind of using their 5 subs, and then that weakens the defensive unit, and then they concede. But
the cool thing there is that, I mean, that's the Foden over De Bruyne wildcard pick. You know, that's not a freemium, which some people have gone with. And you know, Tom, who we know, he's a bit stuck with his team, I think, because he's got freemium. He doesn't really want to get rid of De Bruyne this week, obviously. Doesn't really want to get rid of Kane because he's got a good fixture next week, but he's also a bit stuck. He's got 2 free transfers and he can't do anything without downgrading one of those. So, hindsight, game week 8, City asset to go with was Foden, not De Bruyne in midfield.
Yeah, and you look as well. There's no Cancelo either. So here again, I guess did Cancelo get 9 last week?
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a miss. If he could have had Cancelo in there as well. But yeah, I mean, now the fact that Foden's done that again, though, because I really want Foden now, and obviously I really would have loved to have had him this week, but I know Foden's gotten big scores in the past, and then everyone brings him in, and he just kind of, for different reasons, he kind of disappears, either injury or he gets rotated or something. But it just doesn't seem to he never really seems to go on these big runs. He has these big scores, and then he kind of goes away for a bit. But he has started every single game for City this season, and obviously he is getting more mature, getting older, and you know, Pep's kind of said that he's always fit. So maybe this season is different, but I don't know. I'm not gonna run to him. I think I'll wait until game week 13. I think to look at him.
Yeah, I think anyone that's got De Bruyne, it is so risky to do that. And I know it would feel really good.
Yeah.
I just think it's too much unless you don't have Cancelo. If you're only doubled up and you've got De Bruyne and you've got, I don't know, Zaha and the money, and you're not thinking, Zaha's a bit frustrating, it's not quite done it yet. But you could do that, or maybe Martinelli, you've got the money, but that's sort of moving one problem to another, isn't it, with game week 12 blank?
Yeah, I mean, and look at those scores. I know he's got a couple of assists in there, but in games where they're scoring a lot of goals, to be like 2-4-4-2, it isn't amazing. And yet, he's a fantastic player.
But then you talk about models and what the sort of narrative is, and this might not be a massive step change, but wasn't it a few weeks ago Pep literally said I want Haaland to stay in the width of the penalty box, and I want Foden and Grealish to create the width and pull defenders out of position and almost hug the touchline, and you are not allowed to go into the box and shoot, really. Whereas now, Foden was almost playing alongside Haaland, and if there is that change, the models aren't going to catch up with it and stuff. You'd be a bit crazy now to go someone like De Bruyne over Foden, because if Foden's going to get the attacking returns and goals at that, he's much better than De Bruyne and far cheaper.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. I think the thing I'm potentially looking at is in 13 is actually ditching Cancelo, just because his numbers have been pretty poor, and their defense is amazing, but he's a lot to spend on a defender.
Yeah.
When they're his attacking numbers aren't great. But there's no way that I would look to make that kind of switch before the Southampton game, because you'd think that I feel pretty confident of a clean sheet against Southampton. But he's played again tonight, Cancelo. I guess it depends.
He got an assist as well, I think.
Has he got an assist tonight? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no way I would advise anybody to make that, to get rid of Cancelo before Southampton, or to even swap De Bruyne to Foden for Southampton, because, unless you've got 2 free transfers and you're looking to make a big upgrade elsewhere, I don't think that makes sense. It feels even less than sideways, because De Bruyne can go off in any game, and Foden is a bit more kind of hit and miss, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, spoiler alert with what my thoughts are this week, I think we're both thinking of rolling, but I think that is pretty useful, because next week, I think who to sell, if any, out of the sort of 3 disposable, let's say, City and Arsenal assets that you and I own, is quite a tough one. We both own Cancelo, De Bruyne, and oh no, you haven't got Martinelli. You sold him this week in a very good move, didn't you? But let's say you had. I think a lot of people are going to be in that situation. You probably got to sell one of them. And I think a while back everyone was thinking to get rid of De Bruyne to free up the cash, and that, for obvious reasons, if Haaland is permanent captain, is sensible. But maybe it is Cancelo, like you say. His numbers seem to be down attacking wise. Maybe the triple up front is so good for City if they're just going to batter teams, but also concede, like we've seen. I mean, I'm a Edison owner earlier in the season. He was a bit of a concedes a shot and concedes a goal.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously Edison, the other thing is, because they don't invite shots. They just have the ball all the time. He hardly ever gets bonus, although I think he did get some bonus points, maybe even in the first game. But I think the other thing is, in game week 12, the obvious move, and I was looking at this a couple of weeks back, the obvious move was De Bruyne to Salah, obviously, because if Liverpool have got a fixture, Salah's a very obvious, and probably going to be, even though he's a bit down on his luck at the moment and they're not doing so well, he's surely going to be the highest captain player in game week 12. But I'm now potentially looking at Trossard.
So am I.
Against Forest. But again, I think a lot of people will start looking at that now. So I think Trossard will be quite highly owned. But I think keeping De Bruyne, getting rid of Cancelo, and going to and bringing Trossard in is something that I'm looking at. But I think it will be, if Salah gets a couple of goals against Arsenal or City, it'll be very difficult to resist just going De Bruyne to Salah and captaining him for West Ham. But I mean, West Ham they're not a terrible defence, are they? So I don't see Liverpool absolutely smashing them.
Agreed. Yeah. Who would you buy Trossard for? I think you got quite.
I think Leon.
Decision.
I think Leon Bailey.
Oh right, okay. do you think? Yeah, I think that's the weak spot.
Well, because I don't want to lose. Bailey's slightly more expensive than Andreas. I think Andreas is a much more solid bench option than Bailey.
No, yeah, sure. Sorry, now I'm seeing your team, it's that's the obvious move, but I think for a lot of people that might be quite tricky. I don't really want to sell Andreas, but I don't particularly want to sell any of those four who are a bit more powerful. Some people might have a real power 5 and have, like Mark's team there. Are you really going to get rid of someone that's got 10 plus in a couple of weeks?
Well, the issue for you, I mean, obviously I've already kind of taken the plunge, but Martinelli to Trossard is the easiest, and yet then if you want to go back to Martinelli at some point, you've lost that value. But I wonder if you maybe look at other Arsenal assets, because you could maybe go Maddison to Saka, when I think Leicester have maybe got like Wolves or someone in game week 13, but then they've got City, I think, in 14. So it seems like a decent time to get off them.
Yeah.
And you could go like Maddison to Saka pretty easily, and then Arsenal have got Forest at home in 14. Chelsea's not so great, but then in fact, Chelsea Wolves not so great for Arsenal. People have been really raving about Arsenal's fixtures, but I guess you'd really only be getting one maybe for the Forest game. But I don't think it'd be worth I don't know. I guess you could do it a week early, couldn't you? You could go Maddison instead of Wolves. You could have Southampton if you went to Saka.
Yeah,
But I think Martinelli, given that I don't think Arsenal's fixtures are that amazing before the World Cup, but I just think you
their
wouldn't have to
form's
run.
insane.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the other issue is that Brighton, after that Forest game, which looks great in 12, you've then got City and Chelsea.
True, but I'm not saying De Zerbi's that much of a genius for City maybe to overturn them, but Chelsea maybe it could be. And then
Yeah,
they have to score 3 at Anfield, so okay, going to City, they might get battered 6-3 again, but Trossard might be involved if there's 3 goals. I don't know. I'm not. I just think that Forest fixture is so tempting. And yeah, I agree. Arsenal have only got 2, but that's still 2 pretty scary weeks if you haven't got much Arsenal coverage. I mean, I was thinking a couple of weeks ago really of prioritising getting Saliba in because he's just been such a stalwart, and people are talking about him
yeah.
going to Real Madrid and stuff and being that good. It's pretty scary not having any coverage in defence, which I definitely don't have a high priority of getting an Arsenal defender in. I just haven't got that many transfers, but I can see them getting a few clean sheets there.
But that could be my Cancelo downgrade, couldn't it, to Saliba?
Except you can't do that in 12.
No, I can't do it in 12. No. But yeah, and that's the other issue, right? Is that if you're making a move in 12 to lose one of those players in order to have a playing fixture, you don't want to have to burn another transfer in order to get an Arsenal
One of them back, or yeah,
player
exactly.
in. Yeah,
Well, that's why I haven't also ruled out. I think I said this in the last one, playing 10 players in 12. If I really don't want to sell any of De Bruyne, Martinelli, Cancelo, and obviously I won't sell Haaland, then maybe I won't. My other problem is though that I do have Patterson. So, but it's one of those in game week 12. If I'm faced with getting 10 out, let's say I've got 10 players, and I either bring someone in for Patterson or bring someone in for Martinelli. Say I probably would
yeah,
prioritise Patterson and just get Mark Gay or something. That's that.
yeah. Interesting. There's a lot to plan around that 12 blank, isn't there? But
There are so many ways for it to go. Yeah, exactly. And obviously we've just gone completely out of order here. Somehow we're on the Onion League, and then we're looking at what our permutations are for next week. But it is really tricky, and I think it is quite fun at the moment that people are going to have a lot of different ideas of how to do it. People with Trent and Salah, they're going to be gutted at the moment, but I'm sure they're going to hold them. Maybe not captain, but at least from 12, they've got other areas to focus on. Whereas, we've got about 50 ways we could go.
yeah, I think just because of City's fixtures, I think they probably have to hold them because the City's and Liverpool's fixtures are pretty similar. Obviously, City have a much better one this week, but yeah, it's
On
not
paper,
worth.
yeah, it does turn.
Well, it's not worth the transfers
quickly.
to then have another
Yeah,
player you have to get rid of in 12.
yeah. Quick question for you before we move on from the league. How many of the top 15 in our league have played their wild card?
I'm gonna go with 9.
14.
Really?
Yeah, well, 15. And Mr. Simon Sang is the only person not to have. I think he
Oh
might have done that
wow,
by missing a couple of weeks. So, yeah, most people have gone for it. So,
Mr. Simon Sang. Yeah, I was going to say maybe he just hasn't thought about it.
yeah, he did do transfers in game week 6 and then only game week 9. So he definitely has missed something. But,
Oh wow.
yeah, having it in 13 is pretty powerful.
Is he still ahead of me then?
Yeah, one place.
He's basically a ghost team, and he's not ahead of me.
Yeah, should we move on from the league? Go to how we did last week.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right, here's me from last week. I did Isak to Solanke, and I am 205k in the world, 92 points. So yeah, as I say, really happy. Could have been better, but could have been a lot worse. I think I was only really torn on the Solanke versus Tony move. So Tony getting booked and missing what looked like quite a decent chance, fairly close under the bar, and spooning it over was kind of nice to see. And Solanke, bloody, I mean, you could have had 2 penalties with this VAR shenanigans that was in that game, which is very annoying. But I don't know, 2 versus 1 felt like quite a good victory on that one, and obviously saved quite a lot of money. Trippier getting his jammy, taken off and getting a bonus was pretty good. Obviously, Maddison.
Did you have 2 transfers?
No, wild carded, and then
Okay.
next week I was probably going to roll, but then obviously Isak got his injury, and that sort of forced me because, well, as it happens, I would have played Andreas, and that would have all been fine. I was actually fearful of Andreas, benching him, but then that turned out obviously, I guess, okay with the 8th minute red card, and Fulham getting absolutely stuffed by Newcastle.
Do you wish that you hadn't done the Solanke move, or are you glad that you've got him now going forward?
Well, I'd have Isak. I'd have a really weak bench, wouldn't I? I'd had Isak, Patterson, and then Nico Williams.
Yeah.
But then I would have an extra free transfer.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not as if I would say yes if an obvious attacker had emerged in the last week, but I don't know your thoughts, because you've obviously got Isak, but I am really torn if Mitrovic is injured for a while, who to go to.
I do think Callum Wilson, I know their fixtures aren't amazing, but he's such a solid Premier
And he
League
was pretty
striker.
hot on him when I was watching something today. But a lot of people have been banded about, like, well, I've got the list on a future slide, like Firmino,
Welbeck.
Yeah. Tony's obviously a solidish pick.
Yeah.
But all of them, like Bamford, but everyone's got a little bit of baggage with it. Tony's obviously rock solid, but he hasn't got the greatest fixtures, but it would be classic for him to do something in mediocre fixtures. He's a bit like that, isn't he? So
that's why I do quite like the idea of going back to Jesus. I know it's a huge problem for 12, but they've got Liverpool next.
Yeah, so you were saying that just before, which I was quite surprised with. I mean, that surely gives you a few problems of getting enough out in 12, no?
No, because I'd still be able to get a full team out in 12. It'd mean taking a hit this week, but not taking a hit in 12. So I'd basically take a -4. I'd take a -4 this week, then roll in 11, and then so it would mean not having a Spurs player in 11.
Yeah, okay. You'd forego
that
potential benefit.
Yeah, because I was going to maybe have Son for 1 week, but I just think
same.
Everton, we see it, and obviously they're still bold on here, but they're just a much, much, much better defense. And Son is not. They're just going to sit right back in. And Spurs, I think, we know how good Son is at shooting from range. Kane's good at shooting from range, and I'm sure they will unlock them, but I don't see them absolutely battering them. And I think even if they go a goal up, Everton aren't just going to suddenly come out.
Yeah, it's fair. I saw a stat from that Andrew, what's his surname, Gomer, is it, on Twitter, stat today that Pickford's points per game top 6 compared to non-top 6 is something ridiculous. Like, he's a bit of a troll against top 6. He does incredibly well, which kind of makes sense. Everton are they're a sticky team, aren't they? They're just, like you say, they're just going to sit back and park the bus, and it's a good shot stopper. But when they've actually got to come out, then they don't do great. So you're right, it could be 1-0 Spurs in that one.
Yeah, or even 0-0. I think they're going to both sit in and kind of see who gets bored into coming out first.
Yeah, and given Haaland is probably, as you say, a favourable captain now, people aren't scared to think, oh, I've got to have a Son, or Mitrovic was obviously punted as being a potential one there as well. So yeah, rolling next week might be a good idea.
Yeah.
At the time, I was well happy with Martinelli's assist. I think he was on for bonus at that point, but then he got booked, and then 4 points obviously doesn't look that rosy compared to what some other a bit more expensive midfielders could have done. But it would have been pretty bold to have gone for a hit Martinelli to a
Trossard
or something, or even Bowen. But
it's so funny, this game, isn't it? Because you look at Trossard's hat trick, and obviously Liverpool are in dire straits, but if I told you last week I'm going to bring Trossard in before Liverpool, you'd have been like, you're not playing the game properly. And then there's a lot of that, isn't there? It's like, it's not optimal, but that's massive, that haul. That anyone who's got Trossard and played in that game, because there'll be people who've got him and benched him for Liverpool.
Yeah. I saw people third benching him. It's
oh my God,
pretty understandable.
Yeah, but this is the thing about this game. We're so obsessed with the fixtures, because obviously fixtures gives you a better opportunity, a better chance of getting a score. But that's why we love this game, because there's nothing to stop. We saw it in game week 3 or whatever it was, where we were all saying, well, we're not going to captain Haaland against Palace because Palace have got a decent defense and Liverpool have got Bournemouth. But anyone who did just leave it on Haaland is laughing. So any player can haul against anyone, can't they? I mean, Leon Bailey, I'll take him out, or I'll bench him this week, and he's playing Forest, and he'll get a brace or something.
Well, he's only returned to come against City, hasn't he? I remember, because I benched him in that one, or just sold him. Sorry, I think.
Yeah, but he's he's got Forest, hasn't he? And it's just like, do I go there again? Do I buy another ticket to the Leon Bailey lottery?
Well, we said last week that this week was going to be one where we'd learn a lot, and we did. And some of it was pretty spectacularly one way, wasn't it? Obviously, we know City are just complete monsters, and United maybe not as great as we thought. I mean, and that Liverpool game on paper hasn't taught us a great deal, but being 3-3, but it's shown for sure that Brighton, okay, one game, but under De Zerbi could be pretty amazing going forwards, and Liverpool are still very indifferent, especially in defence.
Yeah. And you think, I'm so relieved. I think you may have mentioned, I haven't listened back to the whole thing last week. Maybe I won't now, but did you ask me if I had considered Martinelli to Maddison last week?
I can't remember.
I feel like you asked me about Maddison and about whether
You had Maddison as your fear for sure, which I've got written down here to mention.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. Then I guess that probably makes sense. But you think, I know hindsight and everything, but my transfer last week, when we spoke last week, was going to be Trent in for Perisic, and nothing else. Whereas in the end, what I did was Martinelli to Maddison. You think about that point swing; it's absolutely huge, isn't it? So
that is massive. Well, when you're also considering De Bruyne to Salah, wasn't that? I thought that was the two options. Basically, I thought you sounded like you were going to get a Liverpool asset, and it was which one.
Oh, yeah. Or I was thinking about, I had the money to do both Trent and Salah in for De Bruyne and Perisic.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank goodness I didn't.
It's been a disaster. Yeah.
Oh God. But Maddison's he's come into his own now, isn't he? He's such a great asset now.
Yeah. Do you know, just probably moves on to, you'll see many people that had Bowen. There's obviously a load of chat about his jammy assist and all this stuff.
Yeah, I know a few people who had Bowen. I think on game week 8 he was because of the fixtures, he was a good shout, and yet he hadn't really shown anything. And obviously in game week 8 didn't do anything, but those who had him weren't going to just ship him straight out. So those who did bring him in game week 8, because those fixtures have obviously done really well out of it. But
I think Tom Martin had him, didn't he? I think.
Yeah,
he got 104 this week, which we haven't mentioned, which is a great score, and that will be Bowen fueled, I think.
Very nice. Indeed.
Cool. Onto your team then.
I've probably already managed to cover most of this just by talking over your team, Shlee. So we probably don't need to spend much time on it. But I guess the annoyance here is still Perisic, or two annoyances: Perisic and Bailey, and they've kind of seemed to have been in and out of my team quite a lot this season, even though we're only in game week 9. But they still just so disappointing. So I think I need to try and figure out how to get rid of them in the next few weeks. I think Perisic is one of those where I'm sure as soon as I don't have him, he'll get a return, he'll get a clean sheet. But he's been such a disappointing FPL asset so far.
Yeah, he's if he was a bit like James, I think I said this last week, with a 2 and a 15 pointer in him, fine. But he does seem to be very bad 2s and 1s at the moment, doesn't he? Although, didn't they keep a clean sheet last night in the Champions League? But I think he was taken off early.
I mean, I just don't need him in my team. He's being used. I listen to Planet FPL, and kind of James, he speaks about him a lot. I think he's still got him in his team, but I was delighted last week when he played at right back, and they still played Sessegnon at left back, and yet apparently he was just played like absolute garbage at right back, and so he doesn't think he'll do that again. And he just hasn't really. I thought we'd at least have had like one goal from him by now, but he just hasn't really done anything. I don't think he's really shooting much. I just feel like, he came with an injury. Obviously he's getting on a little bit now. So, Conte's come out a few times and said he's not the player that I had at Inter, but I just, interestingly enough, I think because of the Emerson Royale red card and the fact that it was a straight red, so it's a 3-game ban, I am looking at potentially doing Perisic to Doherty, even though I shouldn't get him into my team because I can't pronounce his name properly. But the Doc, maybe I'll call him the Doc, which is absolutely what he's not. But I'm thinking of maybe going Perisic to Doherty just to have that Spurs defender, but also we know what he can do. We know what kind of FPL asset he can be. And yet you'd have to hope, unless they're going to bring in Jed Spence, you'd have to think that Doherty, especially now that he's getting minutes, he's going to play these next 3.
Yeah, well, that's what. I did listen to all of Planet FPL, and James did the old, I give everyone my blessing to get Doherty in, which is kind of what he did last season, wasn't it, around game week 27, and he absolutely went nuts, didn't he?
Well, interestingly, before he went nuts, I think last season, James was still saying like he doesn't even think he's a footballer, like he's terrible. And yet I was like, when he was at Wolves, he was an incredible FPL asset, wasn't he?
Yeah. But that came about a similar way, didn't it? Didn't someone get injured? Who was the right back? Was it Royale at the time? Someone got injured, didn't they? And they almost didn't have any other option. And then they realised that, oh, blimey, if he hasn't got to defend too much, as long as he can absolutely stride forward, he just got, what was it, 30 points in a few game weeks, and then went off
he
the radar
got
again.
some absolutely massive scores, didn't he, around that kind of game week 30 time. So yeah, that's who I'm potentially looking at. I wonder if you can kind of talk me into somebody else. But it's interesting. I was looking at the defenders, other than maybe like a cheeky Connor Cody or a James Tarkowski. I don't really think there are loads of standouts in defense as options as downgrades. I guess the Palace guys as well, and Gahey and stuff. But
yeah, that's why I just think that the Patson transfer is hard, but almost maybe the thing to do, because it's hopefully quite low risk, and you're not gonna, you almost can't go wrong with it. Yeah, Gay or Tarkovsky or whatever, like someone's 4.5, fine, but taking out Martinelli and not being able to get him back or whatever, or a De Bruyne or something that could really bite. Really burn you.
Apparently Fofana's gotten injured tonight.
I saw that. Yeah, he scored, and then 10 minutes later has been taken off, I think. They just start with a back three, I think, tonight, Chelsea, with James at wing back. But I mean, that's one person we haven't talked about yet in both our teams. I think we both maybe WhatsApp saying he's a potential cash cow soon, because he's just a bit of a pain, isn't he?
I don't know. I don't think I'll be getting rid of him. I just think, I think with Potter there, I mean, maybe it'll take Potter, months and months to kind of get them doing what he wants them to do. But James just seems James and Chilwell just seem perfectly suited to a Potter system, don't they? And we know what James can do. I think their fixtures are pretty mixed, but I just can't see myself going against him. And I think he'll haul in some game where you don't necessarily expect it, and be pretty painful.
Well, managerless Wolves next, so yeah, you're not going to get rid there. They're decent up to 12, aren't they? And then, there's no awful ones in there, so that it's a bit like a Zaha, isn't it? You're not going to probably find a good week to sell him. So yeah, maybe he'll stick there, but you know what I mean? If you need a cash cow, he could be a bit of an unlikely option.
Yeah, he could. I just think, again, looking at those fixtures, I think with the likes of United and Arsenal in there, that's why I thought they were a bit mixed. But actually, if Potter does sort out the defence, they could get a clean sheet in any of those, couldn't they? Maybe the Arsenal game's probably the hardest one in there.
Yeah.
So I think I'll keep him up to the World Cup.
Cool. Okay. Anything else you want to cover on yours? What happened?
No, I mean, obviously the Maddison thing was amazing. I was thinking on that Monday afternoon, I was like, I've still got Maddison. It's been a kind of middling game week, and I think I'd kind of slipped out at one point, maybe by kind of Saturday evening, I'd slipped out to like 1.8 million. And then because of Haaland's ridiculous score, and Trippier just managing to go off just before they lost the clean sheet, although actually that was the day before, wasn't it? But Haaland's score, basically I was back down to around where I'd started the game week, like 1.2 million. And then on the Monday afternoon, I was thinking, I've got Maddison tonight. He could go big, but the chances are he's not going to. It's going to be a 2-pointer. And then so when it starts to come in, it just gives you those great feels, doesn't it? It's such an addictive.
Yeah, the Monday night was very good.
It's basically the same feeling that you get, that I'm sure people get gambling. There's just that moment where you're like, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? And then when it starts going well, you're like, this is great. And it did give me kind of the feels of last season, when obviously with my Conor Gallagher's and my Jacob Ramsey's, etc., but my Reece James's. But that's why I think we play this game, for those moments where you've picked a player, to have gone Martinelli to Maddison.
Yeah, that's extra cool for you. Yeah,
pretty sweet. Yeah.
It was one of those where I did look at FPL Optimize just to see. Well, actually, I think it's on Live FPL. I think it was 40,000 places per point I was gaining on that. I mean, and you would have been a bit more given lower rank, but yeah, it was pretty serious. And yeah, getting 18 of them. What's that? He would have raised us both up like 300,000 places at least on just that alone. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he gets my maths is terrible, but 40,000 places, isn't that 800,000 places if he gets 20 points? So
Yeah, true. Yeah,
it's nearly it's 720,000 places for you, isn't it? That
true.
math
I think my maths
doesn't
was
quite
really bad
work.
then. Yeah.
But yeah, but no, I mean, I'm delighted to finally be in the top million. Hopefully, I can stay in there and now aim for the top 500k and just keep, as Late Riser does, just keep trying to push to the next boundary.
Yeah, when he always posts, he's like, yeah, 19 points to the next whatever big
Yeah,
milestone. So that's kind of the one way to think about it, isn't it? We'll
yeah.
get on to your, though, we were talking beforehand, weren't we, about mindset of the game week, and your some of the bits you put in the questions bit for this week is quite interesting because it did summarise what your mindset was, which was a bit peeved on Sunday, but it's slightly changed now given what Madison did. In a good way though. Like I was thinking, oh god, these questions are quite tough, and they show a bit of a low point for us both, and then it will come out a bit rosy for Madison. Right, top 10k, the usual sort of check-in of what's going on here. So yeah, Haaland 168%, which I can't remember. I think last week maybe thought it'd be about 150, so that was high. But look at that whole 23 in a sea of less than 10. So
Yeah.
I think Madison was only about 15, so he's quite a way off the bottom of that table. Trent with the only 0 other than Mitrovic. It's pretty brutal. And Cancelo, yes, sort of the second most owned, closely followed by Jesus. I mean, that, without spoiler alert, again, coming to the, how can we improve, and everyone seems to be having the similar sort of team. That's one of those 50-50s that has probably gone against most people, isn't it? Selling Arsenal assets a few weeks ago, especially on wildcard.
Yeah.
On paper, tricky fixtures coming up. Are they going to keep this up? Jesus never seems to get 10 plus, but he's just been very consistently getting 6s and 8s, and that's hurt us big time because he's so well owned.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I adjust, it's just sometimes it's the way it falls. Like if that City Arsenal game in 12 hadn't been called off because of the fixture congestion with Arsenal's European game, I don't think I would have got rid of him.
Yeah.
I think I was just looking at how many transfers would I need to make, and it was just close enough in terms of 8 to 12 that I just thought he's one to get rid of. But I mean, the fixtures weren't that. I mean, I guess it was Brentford, wasn't it, and then Liverpool. But
Yeah, but Brentford, I mean, I said at the time, I don't think many people saw them beating them 3-0. That, on paper, was
no,
quite a tricky fixture. They just clicked on that day.
no. But I do think one thing we have to keep doing, and I have to do it with teams like Everton in particular, is you just have to keep reassessing what a team is and what a team can be, because obviously Liverpool, you see them on the ticker and you're like, oh, that's not a good fixture, but their defense is
Yeah,
shocking at the moment. Every time I haven't kind of watched full games of theirs, but every time I see highlights, Van Dijk just looks, he's just like letting the ball run across him. He's just being bullied by players. Like he just doesn't seem interested. Obviously Robertson's out at the moment, but even when he was in there, he wasn't looking good. Trent, I know that Klopp's come out. You kind of sent us that video of Klopp saying that, and he's right. Trent, the reason why he's so good and he's so attacking and how he has him positionally means that he is going to be caught out of position, but he just looks lost at sea at the moment at the back.
yeah. Well, did you see his free kick last night?
He scored last night, did he?
Yeah, amazing free kick against
Yeah.
Rangers, like 30 yards out, top corner.
I mean,
So,
he nearly scored against Arsenal, didn't he? But he's an amazing attacking player and he's an amazing attacking asset. And he will get points, but you do need them to be part of a defense that you think has the potential to keep a clean sheet. And at the moment, they don't look like they're going to. So
yeah. Tom Martin would be delighted. We'll actually talk about real football for a moment, but I did watch the highlights of that last night, and then the I can't remember what the channel's called, what it stands for. Timo, is it, that does tactical analysis on the teams, and they were talking about them doing a bit of a shift, Liverpool, in that game, and whether it was just because it was Rangers or maybe that's a thing moving forward. But they changed to 2 defensive midfielders rather than 1, so had Henderson and Thiago sitting,
right,
rather than just say Henderson, just to give Trent, and Simicast as it was at left back, a bit more protection, so it makes them a bit more solid defensively, but less going forward. And as it happened, they had enough to get past Rangers, but maybe that's getting ready for Arsenal to try and keep that game quite tight if they can. So it
yeah,
might
that
make
makes sense.
Trent better because at least it's going to give him more clean sheet potential. He's
Yeah.
probably not going to get open play goals or assists as much, but if he's still on free kicks and taking those and scoring a few, it might be okay.
But I guess also, I mean, again, who knows what they're going to do with that if it is a new system. But if they have two defensive midfielders sitting, surely it means that Trent can then go forward even more than he does, and they'll have somebody to come across and protect.
I think the idea is he'll just go forward as much. I think he's already going forward enough, but when he does that, it's not going to be a huge gap between him and whoever's playing right centre back.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I think, again, the nice thing is because of their fixtures, you can just wait and see, and you can just wait till 12. Like if they keep clean sheets against Arsenal and City, then maybe getting them in for 12 is much easier and more obvious. So.
Exactly. If that happens, well, probably a no-brainer, but an obvious. But I would be more tempted to get Trent than Salah, especially given the captaincy thing as well. Okay, you wouldn't have a captaincy in 12, but as we've said, Trossard might be a good option. But having Salah when you're probably not going to captain him much after 12 is maybe quite a waste of money. Whereas Trent,
yeah, and West Ham aren't pulling up trees going forward, are they? I know they, won fairly comfortably last game, but you could then captain Trent in 12, couldn't you? I mean, there's a lot of ifs and buts in this. I don't think they are going to keep clean sheets against Arsenal and City, but we shall see. But you're right. Maybe that, with those two fixtures coming up, the idea of shoring up the defense is probably a very sensible thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. What else is to look at here? Well, we said last week that, what was it, a 12-point swing between wildcard and no chip, whereas there was only a 3-point swing this week, which I think highlights if you were unlucky, if you can call it that, to go wildcard this week compared to an 8, that wasn't in hindsight the right way round. You only gained 3 points in the top right there, 79 for wildcard, 76
yeah,
for
I think
chip.
The best example of that, I think, is Andy, isn't it? I think he's gutted that he didn't wildcard an 8, and some of the decisions that he would have ended up on are they would have been very lucky in a way.
Yeah.
He kind of said, well, if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done this, and then I'd have captained Haaland, kind of thing. It was almost a bit like that. There were lots of kind of links between what he would and would not have done, but like he probably would have had Bowen, wouldn't he, if he'd wildcarded an 8.
Probably, and I think he said as much, but then neither of you or I did. So I think that maybe is a bit more of a borderline one. But
we were also we were thanking our lucky stars that we didn't go from an 8 because he still wasn't looking very good, was he? So
true. I mean, the one thing I was thinking then was I did leave money in the bank from 8 to do De Bruyne to Salah in 9, and I did consider it at the beginning of the sort of game week, but never really towards the end. But it's one of those 50-50s where if you wildcard in 9, you very probably went Salah. Fair enough. And then obviously he's there staring at you and tempting to captain, so I can see how that happened.
Yeah. One of the things that I really regret doing on a game week 8 wildcard, and it seemed very sensible at the time, and I was trying not to have transfers booked in, but I should have just waited on Zaha. I thought I'll get Zaha in. I benched him for the blank in 8. But then he had Chelsea in 9. I thought maybe he'll get something there, but I could have just waited on him, couldn't I? I think that's quite a good lesson, especially.
Who would you have gone for instead? Like, very well saying that, and obviously you'd probably say Trossard now, but do you know what I mean?
Well, I think it would have been, if you think. I mean, it makes sense. I had drafts like this, but I don't think I had Maddison in many drafts, but I did have Bowen in drafts, and obviously West Ham had decent fixtures, didn't they? So I could have just had Bowen for 2 game weeks and then gone to Zaha, but and that would have worked out massive with Bowen's points this week. But yeah, I mean, last week when Bowen blanked and Zaha was sitting on the bench, I was thinking, great. But I mean, I think, when I'm playing Andreas or, and or Nico Williams and or Leon Bailey, having Zaha on the bench actually was too much of a luxury. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I felt a bit sheeple with that as well. That it was just everyone's talking about, he's had great hauls this season. He has, he's a bit of a 2 or a 14 pointer, isn't he? He just comes up with something, and he's, I think he had a 14 pointer and missed a penalty in that game, so he could have been even better. And obviously, tapped in the rebound. So he's just one of those flary players, isn't he? And like we've said, he's not that easy to predict with fixtures. So they're media-ish fixtures, playing the likes of Chelsea with counter-attacking, and then Leeds could be good. But yeah, I've never had much luck with him. So I did think that was maybe a bit of a covering EO type pick. He's not even in this table, but you know what I mean. It's one of those where you're not quite sure, so you sort of maybe go with the crowd a bit.
I think he's another one though, where, as you say, because I've had some pretty bad luck with him as well. But I think he's one of those players where You know how there's been a lot of talk this season of players coming into a team and then as soon as they have a bad performance, they lose their place.
Yeah.
Like your Leon Baileys or, Isaks or whatever. But I think that's what Zaha's been in my team previously, is like he's always been a bit expendable, and I've kind of just thought he's at Palace and, I'll get rid of him now or whatever. But I think I'm going to just try and hold him through to the World Cup now because they've got good fixtures. And I am just going to give him this run in the team and see what he does, because he, as you say, he seems to get points in games where you don't necessarily expect it.
They're certainly decent up to.
Up to the World Cup.
Chelsea there. But no, they are decent, aren't they?
So that's
really good towards the end.
That's the thing. I was just like, I'm just going to get him in and keep him. I mean, 17 and 18 are after the World Cup, aren't they? I mean, Fulham at home and then Bournemouth. I mean,
yeah.
But it's a brand new team at that point, so we're only looking to 16. So
they're
very, very nice.
Yeah, the tick is a little bit difficult to read in that way. Yeah, you've got to ignore the last two. But yeah, just before that, good away games. I don't know. I think if if he hasn't done anything by 13, and I need, he could become a Foden or something, I'm not against getting rid of him for that Everton game. Like we said, Everton's not great.
No, fair enough. I hadn't looked too closely at.
That's the exit point, though. You wouldn't do it in 12. You're going to need him, and after 14, you're probably going to keep him. So it's 13 or nothing, I would say.
Yeah, I think I am just going to keep him through to the World Cup. Just give him this run of fixtures.
Fair. I think that's probably most things on here covered. Luis Diaz was a bit of a weird one. He got benched and then came on and only got the assist. So, again, Liverpool asset luck continues. But if you're on him, he's a bit of a tricky one to know what to do with.
He's just kind of totally gone off my radar, really, Luis Diaz. I haven't really thought about him too much, and I haven't feared not having him. But I just think that is, again, so indicative of what's happened to Liverpool this season and how poor they've been.
Well, he's obviously in a mix of rotation risk as well, isn't it? There's Nunez and Firmino up there, and now Jota's back. So I think he's probably a sell.
Yeah, they're all. That's the thing, isn't it? And especially before these two fixtures as well.
Yeah. Captaincy. Should we talk about this very much at all? Maybe more about Gameweek 11 captaincy. So at the moment you're thinking just keep it on Haaland for this week and next.
Yeah, I think I am, and I'm going to keep it on him. Any game they're playing.
Right.
I'd captain him away at Spurs, I think.
Away at Liverpool though, at Anfield, I know it's easy to say now, and if he goes and gets another hat trick, it'll be even more difficult to think about that. But I don't know. It'll be interesting next week. Captain polls, what people are saying. I mean, he's going to have Europe next week, but if he's been taken off half time here, maybe the same will happen at Copenhagen. But say that Copenhagen game is tight and he plays 90 minutes.
I don't think
not a huge score
because they've won tonight, haven't they? So I think they've qualified already.
Qualified, but probably haven't topped the group. I think they would need to do that next week, and then they probably can really rest people for the 5th and 6th game.
Yeah. But he might, as you say, he might well get 45, 50, 60 minutes against Southampton. 45. He's obviously already done it tonight against Copenhagen. It's just unreal, isn't it? As in he's making it look so easy.
Yeah,
we've never seen anything like this. His stats, he's on to get 66 goals in the Premier League.
Yeah.
That's his strike rate at the moment. So, even if he gets 50 goals, he'll have broken the Premier League because we've never seen that.
Sure.
What did Salah got 32, didn't he? Isn't that the record? 32 goals.
Something like that, yeah.
It's
a bit annoying that next week there is a bit of a dearth of options as well. If there was another
to go against it.
Yeah, another really nice fixture. Like you say, Spurs is good, but Everton are a tricky opponent. United, if a different United, maybe a different Newcastle, that would be quite a good game.
No,
Martial
you're right.
And Anthony looked good though, didn't they?
I think Anthony didn't look great, but obviously his goal was incredible. It was probably the best goal of the game, and that's saying something because City, especially with their combination, scored some unbelievable goals. But yeah, Anthony's goal was absolutely ridiculous. And I had been thinking about Martial potentially as an Isak and we obviously need to get onto that, like Mitrovic and Isak. Obviously, you got rid of Isak last week, but there'll be lots of people like me with Mitrovic. And obviously, if we get news that he's out, I mean, even if, because obviously we got news last week that he was going to be okay, but then he only played 36 minutes or something and got taken off. So I'm thinking of potentially losing either Isak or Mitrovic. Anyway, I mean, obviously they got West Ham this week, which isn't great, but then after that, Bournemouth and Villa at home, then Leeds. So you don't really want to lose Mitrovic because you're going to want him back in.
Agreed.
But if this is a recurring injury, it could be really annoying, couldn't it? I heard something saying he might be out for 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we should say, time of recording Wednesday night. We haven't had anything concrete on this apart from what was it that was said after he came off, that it was something to do with the international
Same injury,
and
same injury from international duty. So I don't think I'm going to, because I've got Isak and Mitrovic. I think I'll be fine to just get rid of one of them, and I'd lean towards Isak. Although, Isak apparently is running on the grass, or was even before the weekend.
True.
So that could be really, really annoying. But that's why I want to make sure I pick the right one if I am going to replace a forward. But no, you're right. I don't think it's really interesting that about 11, isn't it? Because if Spurs had anyone else other than Everton, who's obviously been defensively very sound, and I think there's going to be a bit of a clash of tactics in that game, in that they'll probably cancel each other out. But like if Forest had someone who was decent, or Leeds or Fulham.
Wolves.
I mean, I guess Arsenal, we have completely missed
true.
that. I mean, that could be one thing. If I do bring Jesus in, or if people, I mean, I just don't think Martinelli's kind of safe enough to try and captain, but Jesus could be, being the kind of leading the line at Leeds. But
I don't think that's enough. But as I say, it's a shame that there isn't any others. I think we've talked through all the possible options at the moment, and revisit next week. If Jesus gets a hat trick and Haaland only gets one, maybe there'll be a bit of a conversation there. Mitrovic comes back and banged a couple, maybe at Bournemouth, that'll be a tempter. They're very good at Craven Cottage, but at the moment it's hard to back against Haaland for the next two.
Yeah, and Bournemouth may not be able to score or even create a chance, but they're pretty solid at the back as well, aren't they?
True.
So, because I had seen, if Mitrovic was fully fit and scoring braces, then yes, but he's too much of a risk, isn't he? So I think you're right. I think it's much more likely that Haaland does blank against Liverpool than scores a hat trick, but he could just get one and get a couple of bonus, and it's probably enough, isn't it?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to touch on is suspension, because there's quite a few people on 4 and 3 yellow cards, and a lot of them are quite well owned. So I've just screen grabbed this from Scout. But the big names here on 4 yellows: Jesus, one for you, Gordon, and Darlow. And on 3, Saliba, James, Mitrovic, Maddison, and Nico Williams. So there's quite a few people here, and it would be classic if one of them who you need to play in 12 gets 2 bookings in the next game weeks, and bloody gets suspended for 12. So got to keep a bit of an eye out for that.
Oh, that's devastating, because
it is bad timing, and actually that was one reason why it did swim me a little bit to get rid of Jesus, because I saw he was on 3 yellows and thought that's going to become a bit of a problem. So
that's devastating.
Has put you off a bit.
Yeah, that utterly puts me off, because imagine against Liverpool he gets booked. It'll be like Gaza in the semi-final against Germany in 1990. He'll be looking over at the bench. I'll be stood there. He'll be crying. I'll be crying. It'll be absolutely devastating, because obviously it's the Leeds game is the one that I would want him for.
Sure.
Not that bothered about the Liverpool game. Oh no, I can't go for Jesus then, can I? That's horrendous.
Well, unless it's a bloody Diego Costa Mark 2, though. You know what happened there as
well. He never got booked again.
Yeah,
in his career,
like 8 games or something.
That was ridiculous, and he just kept scoring goals, didn't he?
Yeah. So this will be a lot more relevant next week, because we'll know any of the 3s are not going to be affected by game week 12. But anyone on this list could be a problem for 12 if they get 2 bookings.
Is it 12 at which it moves up to 10 then?
No. Just as in everyone needs.
Oh, you're
full
talking
11
about
game week 12. Yeah.
Oh, it's game week 19, isn't it? Before it moves up to 10. Is it halfway through the season?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not even necessarily game week 19. It'll be when they've played 19 games. So 6 might have only had 18 by that point or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. No, I might have to look at Callum Wilson then. He's not on this list, is he? No.
Correct, he's not on that list. Right then, what are your thoughts next week? Here's your team, 0.8 in the bank.
So I've still got Bailey in there because of the Forest fixture, because I think it would just be too annoying to not get it if he goes nuts against Forest. But again, even if he just played 90 minutes or had played, half decently, but he got taken off on like 65 minutes, and 2 minutes before he went off, he got booked. Like he's so irritating at the moment. I watched a few minutes of the Leeds Villa game after City United, and it was just such a poor standard compared to the City game, that I couldn't watch it for long. But even in that, like he had one moment where he kind of cut in from the right hand side on his left and put in this like really, really nice cross. So I was like, oh, it looks great. And then another moment where I think as soon as I turned it on, he booted the ball away for no reason. And the person I was sat with watching it, my brother-in-law, was like, oh, he's going to get booked for that. And I was like, no, they don't. I was like talking him out of the booking, like going, no, they don't have to book you for that anymore. But he just he's like playing angry, but not like good angry. It's like, I don't know. Doesn't like kind of look with it at all. So I'm just a glutton for punishment, I think, with that. And I think if a bit like with going against Haaland next week, if Andreas or Nico Williams had a slightly better fixture, or if Nico Williams played for a football team that could actually defend, I might go against Bailey. But I just think that, I don't know. Would you play Bailey in that, or would you go for Andreas a bit safer?
I think if there's no news on likely team sheets, or definitely ask the two Toms what they think of Bailey, I probably would still go for Bailey. Yeah,
because I think Buendia, when he came on, looked good apparently. Although I have heard, I think it might have been James again on Planet FPL saying they should play Bailey and they should play him on the wing,
right.
especially if they're going to have three at the back. Or I think it was if they have three at the back, they should play him on the wing. But my plan, and Bailey would be one of the reasons for this. But even if Mitrovic is out, I have to do something. So I probably am going to do. At the moment, the plan is for a -4 Isak to, it was going to be to Jesus, but I think it probably should be to maybe Callum Wilson now. But I need to have a look at that. But it was going to be Isak to Jesus and then Perisic to Doherty.
Right.
And that would mean then that I could obviously bench either Mitrovic or Bailey and have Doherty instead of Perisic.
Can you afford? You can afford both. You can afford either of those, without doing the other, right? Yeah, Isak and Wilson are about the same price, and Doherty's lower than Perisic, I think.
So if I go, in fact, I could go Isak to Wilson for free and just leave Perisic. In fact, I probably would do that. But the Perisic to Doherty move was to get the funds to go Isak up to Jesus, because I think I've got I've got 0.8 in the bank, so I need a little bit more to go from Isak up to Jesus. I think I need 0.3 or 0.4, but I just think that Doherty move is a bit too good an opportunity to pass up potentially, and I think Spurs fixtures are actually pretty nice.
It's very punty though. Like you say, it's too good an opportunity. I don't think that's that clear cut. And didn't James say, oh, the next three should be his, and he'll probably start in Europe, and that'll be the indication of him starting the run? But I don't think he played in Europe last night, did he? They definitely didn't start, I don't think.
Did he not play at all?
I don't know if he. I'm
but I think
sure he didn't start.
they played, because obviously Emerson Royale's suspended in the Premier League.
Okay. So they played him. I did see that. Yeah, he started at right back because he's suspended. So they, flog him in the Champions League.
Yeah, and you're right. It is a bit punty, but I don't see they've got any options. And I don't think Conte likes Jed Spence at all. Whereas at least Doherty is playing some minutes. So I just don't think there's any alternative to it. But the other thing I could do, because I think Nico Williams is a waste of space, even though he's so cheap, is I could go Nico Williams up to Doherty and then still do Isak to Wilson. But that, again, that sort of thing, like taking a -4 probably really does depend on whether Mitrovic is fit or not, because, and I don't like the risk of Bailey in this team still. So I don't mind the -4 to move him out. So I could probably do Isak to Wilson and still do Doherty in for Nico Williams. And I just think even though it's a double Spurs defense, the way Conte plays, and I think Spurs have got like ridiculously low XGC. So I do think they are going to start picking up some clean sheets. But yeah, Brighton, given what Brighton did to Liverpool, it's going to be a much tougher game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't love that, really. I don't like Doherty much. Isak to Wilson, meaning you can bench Bailey, fine. But I think I would probably bench Bailey ahead of Perisic.
Yeah, but what about Mitrovic though as well? I mean,
Oh, sorry, this assumes that Mitrovic is out for 1 day to 1 week. But
yeah,
if it's more, then I think we've both got, well, and a lot of the community are going to have much bigger problem.
I think it's even the fact that they will try and get Mitrovic back. I mean, they already showed that they did, and he could only play 36 minutes. I think that's a big worry as well.
True. Yeah. And they've got
I
a full
think
week,
that
obviously. There's no cup or anything, but yeah, could be too much for next weekend.
even if they keep playing him, like he might not be on good form because he might be playing in pain. So
True.
yeah, I'm not delighted about the Mitrovic situation, to be honest. But I mean, maybe Mitrovic out is the more sensible move, given that Isak's looking like he's back.
And you put here, I mean, what was it, Saturday or Sunday? You said potential transfers is probably roll. So this is all in the last couple of days. You've swung, in all seriousness, from that to you sound like you're very keen on at least one transfer.
Well, because I think when was the Fulham game? It was on the Saturday, wasn't it? Yeah, I don't know how I was thinking I was going to roll if Mitrovic was going to be out.
Right. And I was just looking as well whether Villa was an early kickoff this week. You might get some news, but it's the Monday game, so you definitely won't ahead of the Bailey playing or not playing.
No, and I think Isak's I think he's dropped twice now. I think he's 6.9, isn't he? Because he went up to 7.1 after his goal in game week 8, but he's dropped twice now. But I do think I am probably looking at a -4 this week because I am worried about Mitrovic. And yeah, depending on what news we get, if we get the news that, okay, he's going to miss out, but he'll be back for the week after that, then I think I'll probably just get rid of Isak because I can't go Mitrovic to Wilson because I've got 3 Newcastle already.
Yeah.
So not a great situation, really.
And no worry with Wilson that, injury prone. Isak isn't nibbling about, so he might actually be benched 1 week. And Isak plays number 9. I know that's less likely, but, it's not. He's a talisman, he's on penalties, but he's not nailed. Wilson, I would say.
I think if he's fit, he is nailed because I think they'll play Isak wide. And I think Wilson's been so good for them when he's been fit that I think you're right, but he is injury prone, so he's never too far away from another injury. But I do think after 12, one of my striker spots is probably going to go to a dead spot anyway. So it's only for a few weeks, and I just want to make sure I've got, try and make the best transfers I can to still have a decent team for 12. But otherwise, I probably would have killed one of these spots anyway. But I know that I'm going to need them playing for 12.
What about Tony? Given you've got a few risks about Bailey's a bit of a risk, Nico to pain, Perisic might not play. You can't get much more nailed, on pens. I know the fixtures aren't great though.
Yeah, I don't love his fixtures, but he is the safest pick, and I probably should look at it, but I don't love the fixtures.
No.
But then Brighton obviously conceded 3 at Liverpool as well, so maybe they are just going to be more open. Chelsea's defense hasn't been great, even though I've just talked about how I'm going to keep James until the World Cup. Villa are rubbish.
Yeah, after 13 they're really good. It's a shame it's not reversed, isn't it?
Yeah, but then I don't hate them for that. I can see him scoring against Newcastle. I probably should. I mean, now that you've shown me the way with Jesus being on a booking, I probably should just look at Tony, and that's the simple answer, I think, isn't it? Because I've got the money to go there from either Mitrovic or Isak. So
okay,
yeah, good shout.
And sorry, one other, just the last thought. Not Solanke then, given fixture's all right and it would save the money. That's the benefit, isn't it?
Yeah. Thing is, though, the fixtures are all right, but they're not attacking. They're
Yeah.
not. They're just not creating chances, and it's a bit like, for me, Solanke is the inverse Nico Williams at Forest, where I just don't see. I don't see them keeping a clean sheet. I don't really see Bournemouth
Bournemouth
scoring many
scoring.
goals.
Yeah. We said last week, 50% chance probably of him being involved if they score. But yeah, if they don't score, he ain't going to be involved. And I
No.
think with that, was it Kiefer Moore playing? I think they changed their formation a bit, and I think there was a bit of a doubt whether actually Solanke would even be on pens, which was the first time I've heard that. I was like, what? Where's this come from? But I think Moore has also taken penalties before, so it could not be Solanke, which would be really annoying.
Yeah, and as I said, I mean, I think the Solanke move, I was thinking about it last week, but then I was still looking that in 13 I was going to downgrade him even further down to a Greenwood just to make the cash I needed to bring in a Foden or something. But
Yeah.
it just seemed like an extra transfer to get Bournemouth for the next few fixtures, and I just didn't love the prospect.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I did it last week, because I do agree with you that I think, especially people on wildcard 13, they're probably going to go 4.3 striker as their third striker spot. So
Yeah.
getting nearer that is handy. But yeah, going Solanke to then think down to 4.3 is probably a bit, halfway move.
Well, it's two transfers to do it, isn't it? So
Yeah,
-8 really. When you're thinking of there's lots of other things to do. It's a -8 to basically
yeah,
have Solanke for four fixtures, even though they're good. They're good on paper.
yeah. Fair enough. Okay, this is me, 2.3 in the bank, hence that's what made me in my head flag about Solanke, because that's what I did last week, so I've got a fair bit of cash. Potential transfers are in there, likely roll unless Mitrovic is out for weeks, which I think I'm still pretty standing by. I've actually got Williams ahead of Andreas on my bench, which I need to probably have a bit of a think about, but I think the 11 picks itself and then the bench, just need to move that around. If Mitrovic is out for a while, I've listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players that I might be considering, which I think we've all mentioned apart from Edouard, which is pretty freaking flary pick, isn't it? But yeah,
Yeah.
Skamaka's done all right. Wilson we've mentioned. Martial seems to be on pens. Bamford, I don't know how many minutes he got. I think he came on, didn't he? So
United's fixtures, because I looked at Martial as well, because I think that Ten Hag likes him a lot.
yeah,
I think he showed that in pre-season. He said some crazy thing about Ronaldo after the game, which made no sense. I think he really likes Martial, and I think he'll play, but their fixtures are awful. Their fixtures are really bad.
yeah.
Everton, obviously, we've talked about their defence. Then Newcastle, who I think are much better side. Then Tottenham. Then Chelsea. I mean, then West Ham. From an attacking standpoint, those fixtures are not good.
Fair.
So
And didn't he?
again, if you looked at Martial, if you looked at United and saw some decent fixtures, that would probably be, because it's a good punt and he'd be very, very low owned and he's a good player. And I think if his
he came
manager
on though,
believes
didn't
in
he,
him,
in the derby? Who did they start up front? I feel like he came on and then got the 2 goals.
Rashford started up top,
Right. Okay.
and then he had Sancho left and
Anthony. Right.
Anthony Wright.
Okay.
So
Yeah, Martial's played 45 minutes against Liverpool, got an assist, and then 31 minutes against City. Obviously got 2 goals, so erratic to say the least in terms of minutes. So yeah,
yeah, I
that's
mean,
a complete
again,
punt.
he is very injury prone as well. I mean, it was a bit of a blow. Can't remember who they were playing. Was it after the Liverpool game that he was injured? I think he came back in, got an assist, and then
Those only two
injured.
play only 2 games he's had minutes all season. Southampton, Leicester, Arsenal didn't get anything. And
Yeah,
no minutes in the league.
yeah, exactly. I think he was injured after the Liverpool game, which was why I
Right.
remember being a bit downbeat about it, because obviously we were so good against Liverpool, and then he was
Right.
out. But yeah, I mean, maybe he is a bit fixture proof, Martial, but I'm happy to wait another week. So maybe I'll just get rid of one of Mitrovic or Isak, and then I can always swap the other one to him if he plays and does well in the next game. Because I do think he is a bit fixture proof, and if he is on pens, that is nice. But I wouldn't do it this week.
Yeah. Fair. So wait to see on Mitrovic injury news, but that's me. Next week will be a lot more of a conundrum, as I said. Especially I've got 2 frees, that will be then right. What do I do with the game week 12 blankers. What combination do I get rid of?
Yeah. But out of that current forward line and that list you've got there, who is it that you would go for today if you had to go for one? If you find that Mitrovic is out for 3 weeks, would you just go Tony?
Between Tony and Wilson, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've not given much thought beyond that. I agree with what you're saying about Wilson. Yeah, I was partly playing devil's advocate, saying, yeah, is Isak going to threaten his place? I agree, he's probably not, but definitely the injury proneness is a bit of a worry. And although they scored 4, and I know it was against 10 men, but didn't I can't remember this. Didn't Wilson like pinch off the line because everyone was annoyed that Trippier assist was going to happen, and then Wilson just tapped it on the line or something. So anyway,
yeah, I mean Newcastle's fixtures are so mixed, aren't they?
Yeah, the home games are lush and their away games are tough.
Yeah.
But at home they are amazing. And in 12 they got Everton. Okay, yeah, said about Everton, but that's a decent one when you need him as well.
Yeah, but also and Wilson he has got a pretty decent record against the top teams as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I wouldn't rule him out. I guess it is definitely between him and Tony, isn't it? I think they're the sensible choices.
Yeah, the only slight thing against Wilson as well is that 12 is a midweeker. So if he is a bit injury prone and low on minutes, then that can come a bit quick for him. But everyone's in the same boat. Probably a bit hard to worry about that.
And Brentford have Chelsea.
Brentford have Chelsea. What, in that midweeker?
In 12, yeah.
As in the fixture for Tony is far worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's far worse because I think Everton's defense is certainly outperforming Chelsea's defense so far, isn't it? So I don't think the fixture's far worse, but it is Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea could just smash Brentford, couldn't they, in that game? But it is at Brentford, so maybe Tony isn't a bad pick.
It's really, I find it really hard to read Brentford. That Arsenal game's really messed up my head with them because I see them as a bit like Brighton, are really tactically aware. Like you'd never captain anyone against Brentford because they could just really show up with some genius 4-5-1 system or something that is really amazing to analyse. But I don't know, they seem to have lost something a little bit. But then Tony had a really good chance in that game, so maybe they were quite unlucky against Bournemouth, even though apparently that was a terrible game.
I think we have to reassess Arsenal though as well. I mean, give them credit. I mean, they're top of the league. They're top of the league, aren't they? Even though City are doing what they're doing, it's quite shocking to see Arsenal at the top of the league. But they are a top 2 side, so maybe we shouldn't. In the same way that I don't write United off just because they lost 6-3 to City, we shouldn't be writing Brentford off just because they lost 3-0 to Arsenal. So
true. Yeah. Right. I'm getting pretty yawny, so we'll go through these as quick as we can. I don't know if you've noticed. Cup of tea is not working as it should. But yeah, certainly some interesting things in here to pick out. We've done some of these, I think. Wildcard 13 plans. I mean, I just put in that there as a kind of anyone thinking about it, what you would do. But I think we've sort of mentioned the great fixtures for City, Arsenal.
Yeah.
Most people are probably going to get 5, probably 6 of those. Max out on those.
Yeah.
Cancelo out in 12, we've kind of talked about, and same as item 3, Triple City from game week 13. That's kind of the same thing. Which of the assets do you ditch, if any? What to do with Kane? We touched on Tom Harris's dilemma. I think that's tricky. If you're a Kane owner, would you, and you had 2 free transfers, say, would you ditch this week? It seems the right exit point, but then they got Everton next week.
No, I think Kane, I mean, the fact that Haaland's 40 points ahead of Kane and Kane's the second highest scoring player just shows what Haaland's doing. But Kane's been very, very solid, isn't he? Very consistent. And so he's in good form. He's going to want to maintain that form into the World Cup. I would keep Kane. I haven't looked too closely at Tom's team to see what Kane down could help him do. But given, the hand-wringing we've got over which forwards to go for, I'd love to be able to just have Kane and just not have to worry about it.
Yeah, fair. Okay. So I just realised that some of these words are chopped off, which just check on what they actually are. 4, 5, and 6 is just to do with premium mids. I mean, how would you rank those if you didn't have any of them? Trossard, Foden, and Maddison to bring in. So let's go to the ticker.
If I didn't have any of them, given Leicester's fixtures and given his form, I'd probably prioritise Maddison.
Yeah.
But because Brighton's fixtures, I mean, I don't like Tottenham this week. I don't know. I don't really like Brighton's fixtures other than 12. And so the more I look at it, especially 13, 14, 15, I do think that just Salah in for De Bruyne is sensible, because then you get West Ham, Forest, and then Leeds. But if having Trossard allows you to keep De Bruyne, and they've then got Brighton, Leicester, their fixtures into the World Cup are incredible, aren't they? Cities. So, but maybe it's the answer is you go De Bruyne down to Foden and then get Trossard in for 12, and you just spread the funds, because if we're going to captain Haaland every week, do you even need a second premium?
Yeah, true. But what? And you would do that in 11, De Bruyne to Foden?
No, just do it in.
Do it now.
No, because I think this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, my plan at the moment is to roll 11. So either one or two transfers this week, roll 11, and then in 12 do Cancelo down to a 4-5, 4-6, like maybe Tarkovsky at the moment, or could be Cody as well, and then Bailey to Trossard. So that means benching De Bruyne and Haaland, and obviously maybe Jesus, but because the 4 yellow cards, it's super annoying, that 4 yellow cards.
Yeah.
I might actually have to have a look and see what my team would look like in 11, even if he did get that that 5th yellow, but it's probably not worth the risk. But yeah, it would be benching De Bruyne, Haaland, and another. But then from 13, when they came back, I'd have Foden, Haaland, De Bruyne as my 3 City for those amazing fixtures, and I'd have Everton, probably an Everton defender for their ridiculous run of fixtures as well. I mean, if you look at Everton from 13, Palace, Fulham, good. Leicester, Bournemouth, and then into the World Cup. So, and they're a high performing defense. So I quite like that.
I like the first two. I'm not sure about Leicester. Sorry. I like the first and the last one. Fulham away at Craven Cottage, that's tough. Leicester, score against anyone.
Maybe. I don't know. I think with Mitrovic, potentially injured at the moment, I don't know. Yeah, obviously he's probably going to be back fit by then, but
I think it's really hard to pick any defenders at the moment, though. So yeah, me saying that's not really helpful, because you'd be like, well, who else would you pick? And I have no idea. So, but yeah.
But I mean, if you look at Spurs fixtures, I mean, yes, you've got Liverpool in there at home, but obviously they're going to sit in and make it quite difficult. But that's why I don't hate the double up, or at least keeping one on Perisic or Doherty, because their fixtures are pretty good, I think.
Yeah. Perisic is, I feel your pain there. Yeah, you've got him and you want to get rid, but also you could do something in those. But it is a bit of a rotting at your team. I'd agree with what you said. Maddison first, probably then Foden. If you haven't got any City mids, I haven't even mentioned Bowen in here. I think he's probably joint third with Trossard. I think Maddison, priority, and then getting the right City mid.
I just don't think you. I mean, if you haven't got 3 City and Arsenal, then Foden's a great pick. But they've got a tough fixture next week, haven't they? Although we've been talking about Liverpool's defense, but you wouldn't put that ahead of a Maddison fixture, because Leicester's fixtures are amazing.
Agreed.
And he's going to play in 12. So
yeah. Number 7, Salah and Trent. What to do if you had like one or the other or both? I think Annie was summarising this as it's very hard to sell them, but you probably wouldn't buy them at the moment. I think, is that where you are?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't buy them. Delighted that I didn't go for Trent last week. And just because of the, if Liverpool had a better fixture next week than City, then I think De Bruyne to Salah next week would have been an option. But they play each other, so there's no point. So
okay. And then do you want to take the next 4? Because this was your mind pouring out on Sunday, which is some very big topics to cover at 10:20.
Yeah, I mean, things like obviously big at the back hasn't worked so far. I think if we're all listening, a lot of us who are kind of really involved and really into it are listening to a lot of the same content, so we've got the same kind of players on our minds. One reason why I wasn't going to go for Maddison is because I just felt like I'd seen him in everybody's team on Twitter, but then you pointed out he's only 10% owned. So you've got to watch that sort of stuff. But yeah, I just think everyone's talking about the same players. I mean, even Trossard now. I mean, it's very obvious after he gets a hat trick at Anfield, but that idea of captaining him in 12. These things just come about and then they become a bandwagon, don't they, in people's minds, and they get repeated a lot until suddenly it's like, okay, yeah, let's do that. But
isn't that another Madison? You say it's a bandwagon because you and I have both said it on the pod, but he could probably be 10% owned, okay, maybe 50% captain, but that's only 60%. That's still big.
yeah,
So as in that's still a differential.
no, exactly. I'm just trying to think who else got big points this week. People like Wilson, I know he's only just kind of come back in the team.
I mean, Bowen, he's not greatly owned, but he did great. Martial was a bit of a random one. There was a lot of random scores this week, wasn't there?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think who else did really well this week.
Your mate Gallagher popped up with a goal.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is it's difficult. You don't want to waste transfers, and so you get someone in and think, because if Leon Bailey had done well, he would have been a good differential. But there's a reason why these players are low owned, because there aren't that many people who think they're going to do really well. So
yeah, I think the way I see this is that, I don't know, it's probably annoying to hear, and summarizes maybe my boring style of playing, but probably every 10th, maybe 20th transfer you do is a true differential complete wild card, because every 10th to 20th transfer is a real luxury. All the rest are kind of fairly obvious-ish, or there's an obvious out of three, like last week, Solanke versus Tony versus whoever the striker was at the time. There's no real mega crazy option to go with, but once in a while you do think, especially when you've got 2 free transfers and you're like, well, one of them I've got to use and I don't really know what to do, then you can really go something completely crazy, and probably 10% of the time it actually comes off. But one of those late riser type picks where he suddenly just gets in Doherty at the right time, or whoever it is, that's when it can be really fun. But it's not very often, and often it doesn't come off, so that's when it feels like it's crap, because it's not a very rewarding thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think because the context around the question was comparing it to last season, wasn't it? Where it felt like there were these players, like your Reece Jameses, who kind of not many people are on, but they suddenly went absolutely mad. But then there were long periods in kind of game weeks where you expect him to do well, where he didn't do anything. So maybe that is why he was a differential, because people were, he wasn't a consistent asset, and he still isn't this season. He's not doing it this season yet, but I don't know. It just feels to me like there aren't these players emerging, but that they will emerge. And I think you're right. I think there's a lot to be said for just for being safe, and like even bringing in Tony. I like the idea of bringing in players, especially strikers, when they haven't scored in the previous game. And I know that sounds mad, but in a way, that's why you don't buy players when they score a hat trick unless their name's Haaland, because they're unlikely to get a hat trick in the next game.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Tony, especially now that Jesus has got that yellow cards risk, he probably is the most sensible option. But you're right. I think I have to ignore the fact, I am a very, I am very involved manager, and I'm looking at lots of other things. I'm looking at Twitter and everything, and I just have to keep my eye on the fact that, even though every team on Twitter seems to have a player in, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a differential of sorts.
Yeah. Got to ignore what you think is the ownership and just go with the best option, if that is captain or a player in. Even if it's bloody 90% captain, if you even without the 4 yellows, if Jesus is the best option, I mean, you're thinking of bringing in and he's like 80% captain, that in a way is not a Nick Hughes way of playing, but I can't disagree with it if you do think he's the best option, and he's been killing both of us with a 6 and 8 point trickling along because he's so well owned.
I think if Jesus was not on 4 yellow cards, I would be ignoring the fact that he's like 75% owned.
Yeah.
Because I do think that he has the potential to do well in the next 2 fixtures. But I think you're right. I think the 80% owned and the fact that he could get another yellow is not helpful. Because if he gets a yellow in 11, is he banned for 13, or does he serve it in 12? I think he'd be banned
for 13.
I think he'd be banned for 13, wouldn't he?
Yeah. I'm just thinking if he had a cup game or something, but I don't think he has. I mean, yeah, actually, that's the. But in a way, is that, just going back to the Jesus situation, is that acceptable? I think that comes down to whether your team looks okay in 11 and 13, with potentially a 8 million player on the bench.
Yeah.
Because if so, say you've got Andreas or Williams or something, you're happy to play them in those fixtures, which don't look great, just a quick look. But that might be okay, and that might be okay to
Well,
take a risk.
Fulham's Bournemouth in 11, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's decent, and Leeds in 13. So Andreas might be all right to pop in. Because he's going to blank in 12. You're obviously going to plan your team around that.
Yeah.
But if he blanks in 11 or 13, do you really care? Because you're going to have a bench to cover him.
I definitely care, because rather than getting a player in who blanks once, I'm getting a player in who blanks twice, which isn't.
Yeah, but it's not as if the other options are screaming out at you. You're thinking of Jesus because there's not great other options.
No, but I just think that Liverpool game, given how Liverpool are doing and given how kind of Arsenal seem to have kind of taken their place, it could be a bit feisty, couldn't it? So
yeah, true.
He probably is quite likely to get a booking in that Liverpool game, especially because he's already got four yellow cards in 8 games. Or
true, but if he braces and gets a booking, you're probably not going to care.
Don't know. I want that Leeds fixture.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, that's the kind of thing. It might be worth a risk, but I think it's the risk plus the fact that he's already 80% owned, so probably it isn't worth the risk.
Okay.
I don't know.
What to do with Arsenal assets? That's kind of covered. Me with Martinelli. That's, obviously, you've got rid of that problem. That's one for me for next week to think about. But everyone's been talking up that Martinelli versus Trent this weekend could be quite interesting. So I'm hoping that Martinelli comes good there, exploits those spaces.
Yeah, I'm realizing what those other questions are. Are fixtures as important as they have been in the past? Because we've seen like Trossard smash it against Liverpool, and there have just been players. Haaland obviously just doing well against everyone.
But that's Liverpool on paper, but Liverpool, as it is at the moment, is easy-ish. They've been crap in the Champions League. No Thiago, all that stuff. Like you say, Van Dijk's not right. Nunes has been in and out. They're rebuilding a bit after Mane's gone and all these other problems.
Yeah. No, so you're right. As in what I guess it goes back to that point about Everton and their defence, is that fixtures are still important, but maybe we need to constantly be reassessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a good fixture is. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. You look at the fixture, but then you've got to think. It's what's the classic phrase that people say on Twitter? It's like when you really look at the fixture, I think they mean that, don't they? You don't just see Bournemouth or whatever. You think, oh, hang on, but Bournemouth have kept 2 clean sheets and 2 or whatever, and they've just changed to a different system, and Kiefer Moore's come in and whatever, and that means that it's got to think about it a bit more, which is tough.
Yeah. And then how do we gain ground if we all have the same team? Again, that comes down to this thing of, I think we're still only 9 game weeks in, aren't we? So I just think, it feels like even when you're having a decent week, you're not kind of flying up the ranks, but I think just being consistent and patient is key, isn't it? So
I do think one answer to 10, which also links to 11, is that this season there are a lot more highly owned players. And recently they've been doing quite well. Jesus has been the classic example. Cancelo being the opposite example. He's really well owned, but he's been doing crap. Unfortunately, we've had the wrong one of those two. Whereas last season, we wouldn't have had anyone that was 70% owned, I don't think, apart from Salah, and everyone was captaining him. So I think it is almost harder to get ground this year because you've got to jump off a highly owned asset, try and get on the right one that's lowly owned. And unfortunately, the Jesus has been plodding along and destroying us all.
Yeah, and you're right. I think that is the big difference from last season to this. There just weren't. I think I haven't looked at it, but there are probably 3 or 4 or maybe 5 players who are kind of over 40% owned or something, aren't there? So maybe it is that last season it just didn't feel like, because you had like the Ronaldos doing well, and
look at that, 40% owned and above. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah,
and one of them's Trippier. That just shows how engaged people are. That's just a complete jump on from wildcard times. Yeah, Salah, James, fairly mainstay players, but Martinelli, he was pretty much nowhere last season. Obviously, Jesus was at City. So we've got to try, and especially those that we don't own, we've just got to really hope again this week Jesus doesn't do something Martinelli for you.
I've got 7 of the players on that list.
On that 40% and above.
No, on that
entire list,
on that full list. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the thing. So Haaland's doing great, and obviously if we keep captaining him, and there are still 30% of people or 15% of people who aren't each week, then he'll still rise up the ranks. But even if he's getting 23 points, he's not flying us up there. I think that's the thing, is that you need to find those differentials. Like Saliba has been amazing, hasn't it? If you'd had Saliba and you'd gotten those returns, you would have absolutely shot up the ranks. But it does seem like finding a needle in the haystack at the moment with that, because I remember, didn't he score an own goal or something in game week 2 or something? And then everyone, there were people who were looking for an Arsenal defender. Like I was looking for one. I went for Zinchenko, I think. But Saliba, even though he'd got an own goal, was the one. And then he's looked amazing ever since, hasn't he? So
yeah, if he did get an own goal, quite quickly he got them in. I think he's got 2 10 pluses. He's got 15 recently, hasn't he?
But that's the kind of player. If you've got him, I mean, obviously he's 30% owned now, or 36% owned now. But he's the kind of player that if you had him when he was lower, and he would have absolutely flown you up the ranks with like 15s.
Here's a completely unscripted question then. So let's play a little differential game. Who are you going to pick out that's not on that list we just showed in the top 10k to do well this week? That's 10 plus owned, and then obviously if he goes nuts, we think, hang on a minute, maybe we're quite good at predicting this, but it's got to be someone pretty wacky.
Well, Maddison obviously is one of them who's not on that list, and I think he'll carry on doing well. And
yeah, we've got him now, I suppose. So
and he's got another good fixture. Who do I think is going to do well this week that we don't have on our list? Matt Doherty.
Okay, nice.
Have you got one
out there?
Bowen against Fulham.
I'm going to go Daka.
Wow. See, there you go, because that's the left field choice in our striker thing.
Yeah, true. And he did come on and scored, didn't he? But Vardy did start, so I think obviously that's a blimmin' tricky one for him even to start. But if he does, Bournemouth might be pretty good. Leicester have got a bit between their teeth.
Yeah,
but that's so risky. He's got to start and he's got to do something. But yeah, there are options, I suppose, like that.
You'd almost have to hear that Vardy was injured, wouldn't you?
Probably
to do it. This is a fun game. We should play that every week. Yeah, because that's what we're all trying to do. I mean, that feeling that we all had with Maddison, when you have a 1% owned asset and they do that, it's incredible when that happens.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's on live FPL or on FPL optimized, but they have your biggest your biggest enemy and your biggest hero, whatever it is. And Maddison for sure was mine. Even though Haaland got 23 points, I only got a rise of 3 of those points. Whereas Maddison's 18, you get a rise of like 15 of them because he's, like, say, 10% owned or something. So it's quite interesting when you look at that, what it actually means to your rank.
Who was your biggest enemy this week? Foden?
No, I think it was Jesus.
Yeah, he was mine on live FPL. Yeah, killer.
Yeah, that's it, killer. Yeah.
Jesus. Pain.
Are we there? What do you think? Anything else to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Arsenal assets, I'm thinking of bringing one in. So I guess the point is, if you can figure out a way to navigate 12 and either get 10 or 11, I think you should be able to get 11 out. I don't think I would go into it with 10, or I wouldn't plan to do that. But obviously, if I think I'm getting 11 out and then somebody gets an injury, then maybe I will be with 10. But
yeah, I think I just can imagine in 13 I need to bring in, I'd love 2 free transfers, and even if I had that, I might even bring in 3 players. As I say, I got a bit of a soft spot for Saliba, and I might be a bit blinded by that, but I think he's one I want Foden. That's why, I don't know, you know what I mean? Yeah, I could get 11 out, but with a hit, but then I'd probably want to take a hit the next week. So is a hit really worth it in 11? I might just go with a 10.
Yeah, fair enough. In 12,
especially if it's especially if it's get rid of De Bruyne and then possibly bring him back in. That just seems a bit crazy.
No, I know. And that's why I'm kind of looking at it. But I think, again, if you're still listening at this point, thank you for staying with us. Hour and 40 in nearly, but just cannot recommend enough things like live FPL or FPL.team just to go through the scenarios, because it's so funny how few people use those things generally, and then they're amazed that they've got 5 players from Arsenal and City, and suddenly it's game week 12, their team ticks around and they're like, they've only got 1 free transfer. and they wonder why they're not finishing top of their mini leagues. So I do think those planning tools are super, super useful.
Yeah, agreed. Anything else from you, Nick?
No, all good. Thank you so much, Lee. I love these chats. They do put a lot of thoughts in my head that then I think kind of come round to just before deadline actually making some sense. So
yeah, no, agreed. It's definitely helps the thought process, and yeah, a bit of a long one tonight. So as Nick says, thanks everyone for sticking with it. Get this uploaded and see about Mitrovic news. I think that's the big one for us this week. Did you see what happened in the end with City and Chelsea?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Did you see? Quick look.
So a very quick look. If Haaland went off, then probably ended up 3-0, didn't it?
Be interesting if Cancelo went off though as well.
Yeah, or if there are any more injuries. Well, Chelsea won 3-0 against Milan. Blimey, that's decent.
Man City thrash Copenhagen 5-0.
Oh wow! Oh, Reece James scored and got an assist in the second half.
And a clean sheet. See, that would have been a mega score, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's why I did feel a little bit sorry for Trent owners. Classic, he scores in the Champions League, worldy free kick, but is he going to do that in the Prem?
Yeah, Aubameyang scored for Chelsea as well. I mean, he's already doing well, Potter, isn't he? So
yeah, Cancelo came off in the 57th minute, so he's rested.
Perfect. Okay.
I mean, that is one thing that I do love about Cancelo, and I think James made the point that you're paying $7 million for maybe a less attacking asset than $7 million deserves, but he is almost completely nailed at the moment. Apart from Edison, can you say that with anybody? No. So I didn't love the idea of selling him.
No, true. But I think if you can get Foden in, again, if you don't see anything from Foden between now and 13, and obviously he's only got 2 games to do that, then maybe he won't be as, kind of forefront of our brains at that point. But yeah, I mean, tonight it's good to see. Obviously, Haaland only played 45 minutes. De Bruyne was a complete rest. Foden was a complete rest.
I didn't see that about De Bruyne. That's cool. What is he?
Yeah.
He was benched, just didn't come on.
Yeah, benched.
Right.
Him and Foden were
Right.
both on the bench and didn't come on.
Okay.
So that's great ahead of Southampton, isn't it? And it means you can kind of captain Haaland pretty confidently. And
I'll tell you who was in that situation that isn't great for you though. Doherty did exactly that. Bench didn't come on.
I don't mind that though. But you're right. I mean, he does need minutes, but they haven't. This is the thing. That's why that Emerson Royale red card is such an opportunity, because he cannot play the Premier League game.
Sure.
So who's going to play right back? It has to be Doherty, doesn't it? Unless, did Spence play any minutes?
Don't know.
That's the thing I need to check. Is did Jed Spence play any minutes? Because if he didn't,
yeah,
then I might go for the punt on Doherty.
Interesting. Okay. Right. Thanks everybody for listening. Please give it a like, leave a comment, share and subscribe, and we will be back next week. Normal week, I think, isn't it? Next week. Oh, it's a bit of a weird deadline this week too, isn't it? 1:30, I think. Saturday. There's no early games, and then the United games are weird. 7 p.m. Sunday games, I think. So it's a bit of a strange one, but yeah, there's not an early one, so you shouldn't get caught out by that.
There you go. Cool. Thank you, Mr. Shlee. All the best.
Cheers, Nick. Night, everyone. Bye.